Hello and welcome to the Ballad of the 7 Dice end of campaign Q&A. I am here along with Jason, who played Draxier, and we have received quite a few questions, more questions than I thought we'd receive, honestly, which is cool. We are here to record this, and it has been, we recorded the finale a couple weeks before my birthday last year, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's been literally a year and a half since we recorded Ballad stuff. How's it feel being back in the seat?
It's very nostalgic. I felt like we were going to almost roll dice again.
I know. I have dice right in front of me. A couple of pink ones that I was supposed to give away, and I accidentally gave away a set that I really liked. But the person was really happy when they received them, and so now I have pink dice.
Hell yeah.
I think we're going to dive right on into these questions and try to hopefully appease all the listeners. We ended on such a note with saying goodbye to all the characters. And right off the hop, the first question that I received was, what was the reasoning to keep Kelsar alive? Would Brent have preferred Kelsar to have lived or died? I will say this, outside a game, Brent would always message me oh yeah, I really want to get Kelsar killed. He's like, I really want him to have this big, flashy death. And the closer we came to the finale, the more hesitant he got about it. And he's like, well, I don't know. Maybe. And I think it was probably... It was like when we were at... You remember the point where everyone was rolling their death saving throws at the very end? And the Shining God blew up. And then when Brent realized that it would just outright kill him, he sounded so bummed out. I was like, well, that kind of sucks ass, so I let him roll death saving throws.
It makes sense. You get more attached to your character as you go, and towards the end he's probably like, well, Kelsar's got a lot going on now.
Mm-hmm. He has a future, a hope. When Brent first came up with the idea of Kelsar, he gave me... Essentially, he's like, here's this tiefling, he was a paladin. He's a part of basically Time Cop order. He's like, I want him to think that he had a really horrible past, but it's all an illusion, and he doesn't know what his past is. And that was the concept for Kelsar that we ended up running with. So he always wanted Kelsar to be a punching bag, is what I'm saying. Yeah, but I think the reason I kept him alive was I felt bad, and I figured, well, in all fairness, I'll let the dice decide, because I think Draxier was on his last one as well, and so was MZ. I think you all rolled death saving throws, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, there was a chance for at least 3 of you who have lost your characters there, and everyone succeeded.
Yeah, I like the idea of just giving Kelsar the one last chance, because, well, he was a little reckless with that using his power move, where he depleted all his HP, but at the end of the day, there's also ridiculous damage at that explosion at the end.
He kept not using his negative energy moves, and I kept telling him, I'm like, are you using negative or positive? And he's like, positive. All right. With Bordon, I want to attack the Shining God with radiant damage? All right, let's see here. So this one is for you. Is there anything you would have done differently with your character?
I guess this is just something it's kind of me continuing to evolve as D&D player.
Mm-hmm.
I only ever played stoic characters growing up, and then even Draxier is definitely very stoic.
Yeah.
I would have liked him to be more expressive and dynamic. It's just a very much let's get to the goal, let's do the stuff, let's just end this, that's Draxier in a nutshell. So that's probably the biggest thing I would have changed.
Had you done that, would you have made him open up more, talk more with the party about things?
Partly that, and just partly more general emotions for stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
It would have just been more dialogue, I suppose.
He's definitely the more calm and collected out of everyone.
Mm-hmm. Although even in Rise, I sort of put myself in a box a little bit. Talk was supposed to be way more fun, and even he's like a little bit like, oh man, I gotta be kind of like a parent at times.
You should just go all out. They all do.
Yeah, true.
Check out Rising Your Lathatab, dear listeners. Jason does a wonderful job as a Plumerian bard. But yeah, so the other part of this is there anything you would have done differently as a GM? And I realized like halfway through the game, and by halfway that's like 2 years in, like I was like, oh man, I put too much of an emphasis on you need to hurry, the world's ending, everything's going to shit, keep moving, and I never gave enough downtime, and I regret that, because there's definitely moments where the party could have used it. We did have some downtime with like holiday specials and that kind of thing, but like I definitely wish I created more opportunity for it. But I made everything so dangerous that like everyone, rightfully so, became paranoid. But I mean, anytime you went shopping, I like blew up the store.
It was definitely like a on the run sort of situation. It didn't really seem like we were supposed to rest or do much of like that kind of stuff for very long.
Yeah. That was definitely one of my regrets. And I think it's that one of the things I struggle with as a GM. I just keep like putting emphasis on the main plot, like the main story, and I don't give enough downtime. It's a balance, I suppose.
Yeah.
Here's one where they're going for the jugular. Your campaign went for 4 years. It did. Our campaigns are usually shorter. Do you think it took too long? Yes. I never planned for this to be a 4-year campaign. In all fairness, we finished recording in 3, but there was just so much story to tell. I wrote it as like this grand epic. I wrote out like adventures actually all the way up to level 20. I cut out a chunk of adventure. Some of it like based on what the characters were doing. Others was based on time as well.
I think overall, I guess like I joined later, so I'm a little bit biased. I wasn't there for like the first like year and a half, 2 years, kind of. It makes sense though. I think the length of time makes sense.
Yeah.
If it was a casual campaign, I'd say, well, what do I mean by casual? Like not a show.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it should be shorter. 4 years is a long time to keep getting people around a table. But the thing is, it's not even remotely like a long campaign compared to a bunch of others. Like there's some that started before us that we know of that are like friends of Ballad, and they're still going.
That's true. That's very, very true. And I mean, to be fair, we also would like skip a lot of recording days. 2 people got married, myself and Robert, during the time that we were doing this. There's vacations, people getting sick, people getting injured, Umberto's house flooded. Like, there were so many setbacks that made it very hard to stick to a normal recording time. And this also taught me the very important lesson. Dear listener, if you're ever recording a show, have a set schedule. Do not just haphazardly choose the days based on availability. Just choose the day and see who's available for that day. That does lead into the next question. What tips would you give someone wanting to do a D&D podcast? Jason, what tips would you give someone?
Number one, well, I'm kind of stealing this from you because we talked about it earlier. Make it about the fun. If you're not having fun running it, or like people aren't having fun playing it, it's not going to turn out well. That's a guarantee. And the other thing is, the best podcasts, you can always like tell that people are having fun playing the game, and that's what makes it entertaining.
I agree. You can hear when everyone's getting frustrated or they're having a bad time. There's one podcast I won't name where I was listening to them and you could hear like the DM was a bit of a dick, and he was like actively working against his players, and like he killed 2 people's animal companions and all this, and this was like recorded, and it was a little rough. You could tell his players were like bitter towards him near the end. But yeah, I definitely agree. Having fun is like the most important part of it, because why are you doing it otherwise? I would say, and here's me coming in and crush your dreams, don't expect anything. Don't even expect a lot of listens. Don't expect a lot of people to write to you about the show, anything like that, because it is a flooded market, and essentially you have to be a little different. And not only that, in the beginning it is going to be slow, unless you get a lucky break, and that's awesome, and good for you, but for most people it's very slow ramping up, but then you do find yourself like a solid core audience. I think we have about like 200 people listening to each episode within like a couple weeks of the episode being released, and there's more people who come by to listen afterwards. It's like you'll always build that audience as it goes along, but just like don't expect to like hit it off in the beginning, because that's just going to make you sad when you don't see that happening. So do it because you're enjoying it, have fun doing it, and make sure your episodes are not 2 to 3 hours long.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as I see like a long run time, I'm just like, do I even want to listen to something for this long?
I was saying this to someone else. I was like, I will sit there and I will listen to like 8 1-hour episodes, no problem. You give me like 2 3-hour episodes and I just can't make it through them.
It's rough.
Yeah. What happened to Lobax? Well, a couple things. The story itself, Lobax was following along with the Paladin Warlock mix. Oh, what was his name? That was our first guest, Austin. What was his character's name?
Oh my goodness.
Check out our website, ballad7dice.com. It's in the Off to War chapter. I know that. See, also listeners, when you record a podcast for 3 years and it takes 4 years to air it, it is hard to remember certain things.
I'm completely drawing a blank. I can't put a name.
Opus. I didn't even make it there. I just remembered. Opus was his name, and he worshipped like this beast god. So Lobax was essentially just following along with them, and they were going to go blow up a city. And what happened with that is I was working with Austin on like some story for Opus, and Austin kind of disappeared off the internet for a while. They had a falling out with their D&D group, and then I just sort of lost touch with them, and so we never kind of hit back on what was going on with Opus. But essentially, I'd say Lobax probably made his way to Silendia, probably went back to his cave because he had a union contract, so yeah, I just went back there to go stand guard duty, and which means that he would have survived the whole finale, because Silendia is essentially where Geldspar is, so Lobax is immortal, just living in this, maybe even still guarding that cave. Who knows? So there was a Waterdeep special that we had. I don't know if you heard it, Jason.
I might not have listened to it yet.
We had a bunch of guests go to Waterdeep, and one of them was like Detective Bill. And there was Dick Dynamite from the Backwater Bastards, and Ed from Dungeon Manager. He was also in that special, and essentially they went. That was when you sent Detective Bill to Waterdeep to go investigate it, while you went off to the very normal play that I had set up.
Right.
And they found out that the Illithid that MZ was like originally hunting as like the beginning part of his story, they were there in Waterdeep, and they're making these Illithid abominations. And so the question is, what happened to those Illithid in Waterdeep? Well, the Church of the Shining God. They won. They took over Waterdeep. They completely claimed it as their own. So the Illithid, as a result, would have lost. And so that's the sad end for those terrible brain-eating people. But yeah, they would have eventually been overtaken by the might of the Shining God, because they had a lot of people, a lot of followers. When you feed people, you make education free, you kill the rich, you have a lot of people who join you. Jason, this one's for your character. How do you feel about the ending for Drexcier?
I was actually really happy with the ending for the most part. I mean, it's kind of hard to go wrong when you get like basically like your 3 wishes, right? You know, you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it was like a good opportunity to just kind of show like, I think everyone kind of showed their values at the end. Like that's almost exactly what the ending was to me. Like Ronnie was just did like some really selfish thing. Borodon wanted to become a god. Kalsor wanted to find like other Nephilim,
like family and community.
Yeah, like sort of like somewhere he belongs. MZ just wanted to live out the rest of his life normally, and then Draxier wanted to kind of like save his family and sort of do the whole work grind for Nostradamus and just live the best life he can. And I think that it's kind of like the common theme for everyone, and I think it's kind of like a satisfying thing. It's like you sort of fulfilled like the arc of your life. I feel like it's always kind of nice when you get to do something like that, so I'm pretty happy about it.
I never thought about it in that respect, that it was like the core value of each character. It really shone in that moment.
I just kind of thought about it like probably about like an hour or two ago, really, to be honest. But I was thinking about the ending, and I was like, everyone just kind of fulfilled like this very clear arc for the life of their character, and it was just like exactly how they probably wanted their lives to go.
Yeah, they got to live that perfect outcome. And like it made sense that Borodon would want Godlias. He told everyone that he was a prince. And
yeah, it was very on brand.
Ronnie's one that, oh my god, I remember we all laughed so hard at that it caught me off guard because I figured he would just be like, oh, I want to be like super famous or like something like that, because that was Ronnie's goal, and he caught me off guard with that though, because he just didn't want to go on any more adventures to such a degree. MZ's ending though, I feel, was like the we were talking about this a little earlier, but it was like the perfect wrap up for the story. Like it kind of just, it gave a nice like closing the book sort of feel of like, all right, everyone's off doing their own thing, and we finally say goodbye.
Yeah, I actually really liked that when I re-listened to the finale, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the goodbye my friend kind of moment.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the song I used for the end, for like going through everyone's saying goodbye, is the same song I used for the end of the very first episode when Borodon died. I figured it was a fun callback that only I would know until I forced everyone else to know about it.
Now you know.
Yeah. So this one is for Ronnie, but Evan unfortunately isn't here. But the question was, Ronnie's character was super interesting throughout. That's fair. Did you ever second guess his motives when it seemed like you were at odds with the rest of the party? I wonder if this is like a GM question, the first part, because the second part is, will you play another campaign, and how might your next character be different?
I think there's two possible meanings to that question. I think one of them is, did Evan ever second guess himself playing Ronnie? Do you still want to go against the party to this extent?
Yeah.
I think that could be one interpretation of that.
So when I talk to Evan, we're probably going to pick up cat screaming in this. There's no avoiding it. But when I talked to Evan, his biggest thing with Ronnie is, he said, I don't want Ronnie to be a hero. Up until the very end, I don't want Ronnie to be a very good guy. I don't want him to be redeemed. I want him just to be he's just a guy and he's kind of shitty. And so I think Evan played Ronnie exactly how he intended to play Ronnie. There was some friction, especially around that Arkham arc. We had to actually put in some house rules for PvP and stuff, where it had to be 2 consenting parties, because I don't think Evan was super stoked about that when it was happening. But I think Evan honestly played his character exactly how he wanted to. And if Evan did play in another game, I feel like he would play something, maybe not the same, but definitely goofy. That seemed to be his go-to. He liked playing goofy characters.
Yeah, he's very good at that certain brand of comedy where he just either goes a little bit it's subtly over the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a slightly off conversation that you'll have with him. His character will just be he'll say normal things, but he'll just put a bit of a weird tone to it, or just weird circumstance. Are any of the cast returning for campaign 2?
No, the next campaign we have, Escaping Carcosa, actually has a very, very large cast. Larger than I was expecting when I was ending this campaign, but I came up with a cool idea. But if you ever check out Rise of Nyarlathotep on Twitch, Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. CST, we have Jason joining us as Kratok.
Yeah, the simply superb Blumerian Bard.
Yeah, we have our... Essentially, when we ended the campaign, a little inside... It was very hard to get people together because everyone's lives were just busy, I think. So it was a little hard in that regard. So I just decided to try out like a new cast and see how it was going. Like, we had already Jason and Rise, and we had like a new cast for that as well. So I worked with another GM who you'll be meeting soon, Michaela, and we created 2 different groups for our next campaign. So it'll be 2 ongoing stories that work together. I'll explain that later, I'm sure. I hope, so that everyone knows what's going on. But yeah, so it'll be a brand new cast for the second podcast campaign. There he is. What systems would you play aside from D&D? Is there any systems that you wanted to try out, Jason?
I'm not really one of those people that like researches a lot of different stuff and it's like, oh yeah, I want to try this.
Yeah,
I would say that like we've dabbled in other stuff, like for sure. Who did you come up with the just doctor work thing?
Yeah, I made that up.
Honestly, just something that's like very like loose but still kind of has like a point to it is like a lot of fun. So I really like the just doctor work system.
Mm-hmm.
We've played Call of Cthulhu. We've played, well, now going into Rise, a little bit of Petticoats and Proposals spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
I find like if you're doing it right, the system's like almost transparent to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. I was thinking about like what system to do when I was, like the next campaign for this. I was racking my brain on like, what do I want to use? Because like there's, it has to be something that people are aware of, so they'll search it up and want to listen to it. So it can't be like some just out of nowhere game. But at the same time, I did want to do something a bit different. We went with Call of Cthulhu and Pathfinder for our next campaign. So those are like the 2 games going. But a game I guess there's 2 games I really want to play. There's Monster of the Week, which is as it sounds. There's like, each arc is a brand new weird cryptid monster that like hunters are trying to hunt, and it's kind of easy for the hunters to die. I really want to try that out, even if it's just like a one-shot or something like that, or like a small story. But there's this one, what's it called? Heart City. Yeah, so it's called Heart the City Beneath. And the art is rad as hell. I think it's the same artist who did like the Darkest Dungeons like artwork. And it's essentially, there is this tower, kind of like how we had the Lost Tower of Ambrosia when we were doing those specials. Check that out on YouTube. But essentially, like in this story, there's a tower where all these elves are living in like this perfect society, and no one can escape the tower. Like everyone just lives in it. I'm pretty sure like the outside's like a wasteland, and underneath the tower is called the city. And so like there's this big slum city, and underneath that is essentially, think of it, it's kind of like the Far Realms, like an ever-changing, ever-morphing like cave system. Like you go through one tunnel and suddenly you're in like this open plains area, go through another tunnel, and it's like everything is made out of hands, and like so it's really easy to just kind of mix in the weird body horror stuff I like using. I may use that for a future stream. I don't know. We'll see. See here. That's this one. For the players, was there an enemy you wish you faced and a place you wish you went for your character?
The one that like sticks out the most clearly to me, because it kind of bothered me a little bit, was eventually just getting to Waterdeep, and I believe we would have faced off against the Ringmaster there.
Yeah.
But the way events played out, we kind of skipped the opportunity to do that. That's kind of the only major one I can think of. But then you could also argue... Well, no, I'm not sure actually, but I felt something about when we fought Oblivion felt like that was like moderately optional, and I don't know why.
So Oblivion was created just through like a one-off mistake, right?
Well, yeah, that's true, to be fair.
And so that is like a bit of the optional feel, but then I figured like it'd be really cool if there was like an enemy constantly trying to hunt people, which is once again me trying to move the story forward. But with the Ringmaster, I had a whole story behind them, and I was, planning on you guys heading to Waterdeep, but then I figured, like, I didn't want it to feel too railroady. Like, the first season, I kind of had it a little bit on tracks. Not too much. Like, there's still plenty of, like, whatever the players want to do, they can go do. Like, I did have, like, a story in mind kind of thing. And after that, like, the later seasons, it's like I had things I wanted the party to do, and so I would just shift them around based on what the party would do. So I had that kind of fork in the road of you all either going to the play and meeting Haster, or going to Waterdeep and, defeating the Ringmaster. You kind of beat him in, like, the big war, but it wasn't, like, as satisfying. He was just kind of there.
Yeah, he just became, like, an NPC, basically.
But I even had, like, in Waterdeep, I had this big grand speech with him and stuff like that, and there was one of the one-shots we did where I had, like, a bunch of guests from other podcasts as well, All Hail the Shining God, which I really liked. I actually introduced the Ringmaster. They went to, like, this noble's house because the noble wanted them, like, to go solve this grand puzzle, and then they were talking about how they weren't feeling well, and then, like, the Ringmaster actually, like, was exploded out of their body. This cat is scratching my desk. Are you kidding me? These are the troubles I work through for this podcast. But yeah, the Ringmaster was, like, birthed that way, and I really wanted to use him, but at the same time, I didn't want to, like, force everyone's hand. Kind of thing. And if you went towards Waterdeep too, the cities, like the small towns, were going to be full of undead. So there's going to be kind of like you would find adventurers that were like trying to clear out these undead, and some that were getting killed.
Yeah.
I also there's like Bordon's home. When Bordon decided not to go home, I gave him like that forge stone that would let him travel back with the party and then come back here come back to like the Forgotten Realms. When he said he wasn't going, I had like 30 pages written up about his home, of like a great celebration they would do for his arrival, of like fighting the lich that was ruling over there and freeing his brother. I had this huge story, and he's like, no, we're not going to go there. And I was looking at it, I was like, there's no way I can make the party go there right now.
Yeah. It's just a hard balance thing, because it felt, I think what it was is that it felt like, oh, we don't have time to waste going there, but it's like, how do you avoid that? Just because you gotta have like some impending stuff coming still, right?
Right. And I think that's like with that's one of the questions. Why didn't you go to Bordon's home?
Oh, the very next one.
Because Umberto said no. That's literally the only reason. I was trying to like make this big impending doom, because I love a good like world ender. Even in Rise of Nyarlathotep, there's like a threat of something trying to eat the planet kind of thing. But to like a lesser degree, I really tried to pull back compared to what I did with this campaign. Like it's happening, but it's not like you got to get out there now or everyone's gonna die, which I really did in Ballad. So I think that definitely like pushed Umberto's thinking to like, we got to get going. We don't have time to go to my home.
Just to add one more thing, I think that's kind of like the type of characters we all played, is they're all, even though they're not necessarily from the Forgotten Realms, they just kind of instinctively just care about it, because it's like, this is a place with people, if for no other reason. So it's not like they could just turn that off and just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll go do this instead.
I think even like the closest to being like uncaring, I guess, shift between Ronnie and MZ. Like even MZ, Robert initially made him as like, fuck it, if people die, if people die, they die. And near the end, he really had MZ like care, and like he wanted to help people, and he wanted to save everything. Especially when we had that All Hail Prince MZ arc, where it's like all about him and his home. I think that was like a really big change for when Robert was role playing MZ.
Yeah, definitely.
That was, I think, one of our longest arcs. Was All Hail Prince Enzi.
It was a cool one, like Theater of the Mind wise, because like it's like very sci-fi feeling at first, and then it's like crazy out there world. You know, like my brain was just like firing. Like, what does this look like? I have no idea. Let's think of something.
There's dragons and everything
Yeah.
flying everywhere, and like they're like, oh, we got like this horn of hell, and the Queen's a lich, and it's a really high level place, and I was like, oh, I'm sending them all there. I think at like level 8 or something, and
Yeah, it was definitely extra fun that way.
yeah, it was really cool, and I finally got to justify why we called it Dungeons and Dragons. I was like, I gave him the dungeon, here's the dragons.
It's a lot of dragons.
There was. But yeah, I love that arc. I had a lot of fun. I think like that's one of the arcs that I was fine with it taking a while, and I just really wanted you all to kind of like get a feeling of MZ's home and what it's like when he saw his family and they're like, you're coming to dinner, and he's like, fuck. Sorry guys, I gotta go see my mom. And he's just like terrified, because normally he was the badass, like, fuck it, it's an abomination, let's go kill it. And he has to sit across like the dinner table from his mom. He's like, I'm gonna die. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, it was like an interesting going from we understand everything that's going on to like, no, you guys really don't get it.
Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun. So there's 2 here. So first is, how do I record those NPC scenes? I think they're asking if I scripted them or not.
I think that's the gist of the question, yeah.
Yeah, the answer is no. I just went in with a general idea and I went all off the cuff. So all those NPC scenes, the only ones that are scripted are the ones with Dorum. And that's just because Michelle would prefer to have the lines for Dorum to play them out. But every other scene you heard would just be me. Essentially, I sit down, I try to think of an NPC or a situation relating to what's going on with the story, and then I just wing it and keep whatever I had. Sometimes trim little bits out here and there, but like, I just like roll with it.
And just to cover the other angle of what they might be asking, Lucas just likes talking to himself sometimes, so he actually talks to himself as different characters.
100%. Even before I did this podcast, sitting there making dinner, doing these voices. Michelle banned certain voices in the house. I can't do the Bernard one in the household because it annoys.
I love Bernard though. Bernard will always be my favorite. That voice is outrageous.
I based that voice off the Red Devil from Cow and Chicken, the red guy who bounced on his ass.
I remember that show fondly.
Yeah, so when I saw that, because when I was making that character, I was drunk at Gen Con. And like I was sitting there, we were at like our Airbnb. I was with Dave from Four Orbs and his wife Deidre, as well as Jeremy from Midnight Kingdoms and Michelle. And we were drinking, and Dave was trying not to. I think Dave was trying not to get drunk because Dave was like handling all the recording equipment. But me and Jeremy, we definitely got drunk. We just kept grabbing like more and more beer. There was actually a line that Dave didn't keep, and I think it's because we fucked the audio so much. But I pulled out a shoebox, and I had 2 elastic bands over it, and I sang a song with this shoebox lute about Dave the barkeeper and how we loved him. And we were all laughing so hard through the whole thing, and yeah. It was so hard for him to clean that audio too, because we keep making shitty little comments while he was trying to like describe the scene or like just like joking around. It was good.
See, that is a prime example of like just have fun doing it. That's where all the best shit comes from.
Oh yeah, that's like all our Christmas specials. I'd always invite people, and I'm like, oh, so like how kind of serious do you want the tone? I'm like, I don't fucking care. It's Christmas. I'm just go all in. I'm like, here's your rules. And that's why we got things like T.I. Saves Christmas, or...
What was the one someone did like a high-pitched voice elf or something? That
That's
one
Seth.
killed me. Seth fucking killed me towards the end of that episode. It was just too much.
He's so good. He's such a good voice actor. He's a GM of Cheaper by the Dungeons. And I think they're on like indefinite hiatus. I'm not sure if they're coming back, but Seth is so talented. He ran Benjamin's too, the charity
Bowling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun when we participated in that one.
Yeah.
Lots of wonky antics for sure.
we played our characters on drugs.
Pretty much.
So at the very end, I didn't understand the scene with Dorum. What happened? Fair enough. When me and Michelle thought up like Dorum's whole story in the very beginning, we always it was always planned that Dorum was going to die, right? And Matthews has a secret mission. Oh, secret mission. And that's why Matthews was talking about how he was like helping gather the party and kept leading them along, that kind of stuff. He didn't help as much as he did. He just wanted to sound self-important. The party did a lot of it on their own. But Matthews has like a mission, which I'm sure one day I'll do a one-shot to actually explain. But I want a little bit of mystery around him still. But essentially, he has a very important mission and needs to collect people. And so Dorum was one of the people that he had to collect. And so he was just waiting for her to die. And so she died, and he collected her. The soul, that is. That's why you hear a reverb in Michelle's voice. Yeah, this is the question that really made me think a lot, where they just called me out. It seems like the players were always being pushed by danger. There was a reason. Was there a reason that there wasn't a lot of downtime? Also, as a player, how is it playing in a campaign always pushing forward?
So I would say shout out to whoever asked this question, like full savage, but also you hit the nail on the head because it was like a pretty big thing.
Yeah, common for me. Jesus.
Yeah. From my perspective, I would say it's like 90% positive because I get really bored when you're just sitting around role-playing a lot. And I just can't focus on that. So for me personally, it was kind of good. There's just the odd time to just be like slightly frustrating. It's like, oh man, I wanted to do this, but I didn't get the chance. Shit. But there weren't too many of those moments, really. I think there's only, like I said earlier about the Ringmaster, I think that's kind of the only thing that I kind of wish we got to do. It was like just like one more little arc.
Yeah.
And maybe a little more time in Haymore, but I mean, it was interesting as it was.
I had to write a whole goddamn audio drama because you guys skipped Haymore.
Yeah.
Well, I rewarded you for your creativity because it was a smart idea to bust into the King's treasury. I thought you were gonna like go to the city or like even the outskirts of the city, and I had a whole thing where Draxir was gonna help incite a rebellion against the king, and you were gonna see what was happening of like the magic being drained from the harp. And so like essentially what happened in the audio drama was the adventure I wrote for Haymore, with all those wonderful characters were NPCs that I had the party was going to meet. And so because you were all really creative and you skipped over that, I was like, well, it's like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's no explanation why that king has the harp or anything.
So to add on like a funny little point, so Lucas kind of said when we were going into like all that revisiting home stuff, you said something like time passes differently when you leave and go to different realms, right? Like that was kind of a common theme for all those places we went to.
Yeah. Like when you were at MZ's home, time was really slowed, for instance.
So even though you told us that, I feel like we were so cynical by that point. We were like, fuck, Lucas gonna make shit go down faster. Everything's gonna blow up while we're gone. We don't have time to spare. I actually think that's partly what happened, even though you meant it like the opposite way. Like you have time to flesh stuff out. Just play the game, okay? We're like, oh fuck no.
That was 100. I was like essentially saying all of your homes, you have a lot more time hanging out here because you can explore it. That's why like when you came back from NC's homeworld, they're like, how long's it been? And it's like, an hour? It's like,
that's
I was gone for 4 days. I was like, see, look what's happening. And you're all like, no, that was a fucking hour too long. We gotta go.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I knew at that point when I kept seeing like the party just like forging forward, I was like, I did this. I set them up like this. Yeah, and there was like, I also set it up that you all didn't trust any NPCs because I did make backstabby NPCs keep showing up. Like
the fucking flesh suit thing.
Yeah, Giles showing up all the time. I had that happen, and I realized like near the end, I was like, oh, they won't trust anyone. Even if I had someone come in here and be like, hey guys, I'm on your side. I got some information. You'll be like, fucking tie him up.
What's
get
the
up
password?
The burning iron.
Yeah. We almost needed like a whole verification process. Like, did you bring your SSL certificate to this conversation? Because I don't know who you are.
I'm getting some warnings just entering this room. Because when I wrote the campaign, the whole idea was to have everyone be very like, oh, we got to do this, like it's this big impending doom, and then I didn't think it out fully of what that would do to the story, which the story was still good. I love how it turned out. I just kind of wish I had a little bit of downtime moments, but it's just how the story went. That's all. But all in all, I was very proud of what we accomplished, and we finished a campaign. How many can say that?
That's true.
So I had a couple questions. This one's for you, Jason. What was one of the favorite moments with Draxier?
There's two that stick out. The one like is kind of like a, oh my god, did we really do that? A moment was the Death Blender. I couldn't fucking believe that we actually worked together that well. And basically a flawless victory, like a whole somewhat difficult encounter, like just boom.
I had so many enemies.
I guess it wasn't super difficult, but there's like a lot of enemies to deal with, and we're just like, no, we're just gonna blend them.
They couldn't do any attacks. They couldn't cast spells, and you just kept like hurting them as they were going and drowning the ones back there. Like, it was supposed to be, the whole mission was supposed to be a stealth one where you sneak in, see what's happening. You're like, oh fuck, and then you go out like, we gotta go, and we'll alert the guards, and they'll help.
The best part is that whole thing started because Ronnie's like, I'm going to Thunderwave the ocean and see if I get some fish or something like that.
And he killed a deep one that ended up like floating to the surface. And
I know, but it was like at the point where I remember specifically, like, Humberto was so done with Ronnie. It's like he was about to interject, and he's like, you know what? Just do it. And then it worked out.
He blew up the door. Humberto blew up the door. He's like, fuck it, I don't even care anymore. Guiding bolt on their door. I'm like, what? So this is a stealth mission.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
When did Draxier get to make the deal with Nostradamus Corp to like pick up his family?
Oh yeah.
I'm drawing a blank. That would be the other one though, because it's kind of like that was sort of like his utmost responsibility. So it was kind of cool that like he actually did a good job of that.
When did that go? So you had a couple times talking to Nostradamus. So there was the bird that blew up. That was them telling that they successfully got your family. Oh, it was because I remember Umberto making the comment like, "Oh, I go see my family and they're suffering and dying." Meanwhile, Draxier gets a call with, "Oh, you got the job."
Yeah, okay, that's pretty. I remember that. That was the first meeting. It wasn't that time. I think it would have been the next meeting.
I think that might have been. Oh, so ST3v3 in the dream. You spoke to ST3v3, and it was like a dream sequence. I was trying to get you to use the Dream Anteater, and nobody would use that book, the Book of Friends.
That thing scared the shit out of me. I thought I was going to unleash like new horrors into the world if I used it.
I gave that to Evan at right when Draxier joined the group, so Evan got it then.
Yeah.
And I reminded him 8 times, remember that book? Remember that book you got? He's like, yeah, for sure. And he never used it. He kept forgetting every time. I was like, this is a chaos book. Please use it. It was funny though when it finally came up because his Cloney died.
Yeah.
That long con too of Cloney.
Oh my god.
So listeners, the players didn't know. When the players found out about Cloney, that was real time about them finding out that was actually happening. Like when Jason's character, like Draxter, was dying in MZ's home, and he's like, why won't Ronnie fucking heal me? And like, just use cure wounds. And he's like, and tries to heal check and rolls like a 1. And I remember messaging you saying like, well, there's a reason Ronnie can't heal you right now, and it's because his character was a rogue. And so he had 0 healing capabilities.
Yeah, I got kind of confused what you meant at that time. So I was like, what? Wait, what the fuck happened? Did I just miss something? But yeah, that was... It worked out perfectly because Ronnie is the type where he doesn't care about really any... Well, okay, I'm being a little harsh. I don't think he cared too much about helping, except when it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
So it just works perfectly where it's like, oh yeah, there's this guy who's kind of useless and not helping. It's like, well, Ronnie wouldn't care to anyways, so is there a huge difference? I don't know.
He kept dropping hints, and he kept thinking he was going to get found out. Like, there was the time when you all asked him to use his powers to, like, warp you somewhere, and he just used a scroll of prestidigitation to make, like, a poof of smoke, and, like, rolled really badly, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? And, like, I really thought he was found out, but then Bordon said, like, something, I think it was Bordon, said, like, oh, his powers must be, like, out of whack or something, like, something must have happened to him. And Evan's like, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I was like, oh my god, what a save.
Yeah, Humberto kind of covered for him.
Yeah, because he's just like, it's Ronnie, fucking whatever. I was like, oh my god, he slipped under the radar.
It was, whenever he stepped out, it was like perfect timing though, because we went from like, I saw Ronnie do something helpful to, well, Ronnie hasn't done something helpful in a while, but that's kind of par for the course. And it didn't seem like there was like an obvious time where he just kind of went poof.
And the character was like a pickpocket and a thief, and it's just like a useless individual. He's like, I want this guy to be like worse than Ronnie, and so I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So that Cloney was real time for everyone. I guess we kind of already talked about this. What do you think about the finale and wrapping up our story? I think we kind of discussed that one already.
More or less, like the other question, how do you feel about the ending for your character?
Yeah.
But I guess like more from like a general sense. It's always one of those things. Like I think when you finish a campaign or like a game, like it's like, well, I guess the most relatable thing for me is a video game because I never finished a D&D campaign before this either. But you know, like that bittersweet feeling where it's like, fuck yeah, I beat the game, and it's like, oh, I beat the game, and you're like kind of sad because you don't have a game anymore because you're done with it. It's pretty much just exactly like that. I think maybe a little bit more so, like in the heavy feeling environment, because you commit way more time to D&D and like more thought than most video games.
And you put like a little bit of yourself in your character, and like, you know, you as you grow them, you're even like learning a bit about yourself, like that kind of stuff. And
yeah, but for like on that same token, like to me, like Draxter still exists. Like if I wanted to just like poof him into a game somewhere down the road, like I don't think it would be like too crazy, right? Because of the way the world's set up.
Yeah, the Nostradamus Corporation is a fucking wild place to work.
Yeah.
Set up clone sleeves and everything for people. Draxter is God knows how old, but is still just, you know, working on things.
Yeah, like it's feasible that he would achieve like immortality or like just to become like a really old cyborg or something somehow.
Yeah,
if he wanted to.
I was pretty happy when he went to go to the Nostradamus Corporation because it's like, oh, I can use that, sweet. Just tie it in with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions about the ending, about the story itself? Was there anything that stood out? Any theories you had that didn't land?
The biggest theory I had that was wrong was I think I had the finale event roles of Dorum and Matthews reversed. I thought for sure Matthews was more like an embodiment of the Shining God than Dorum was. I don't know why I thought that, but...
Oh. Well, Matthews presented himself as like
kind of like an ultimate power that the party had to overcome, right? Like a big hurdle, especially for Kelsar. Kelsar was so fixated on Matthews, and so like having him there, he definitely kind of like embodied like I'm one of the major forces of the enemy. So I can definitely see why you would think he would be, you know, some kind of like embodiment like that. With Dorum, the whole thing with her is like the Shining God. She essentially made the Shining God up. And how gods work is like the more worship and praise and everything they get, like it accumulates powers and eventually they come into being. And so she was the Messiah, the Shining God, and she was using it as like a front to gather people. And people kept worshiping the Shining God, so eventually she essentially had the Shining God in her. So it was like two sides of the same coin kind of thing.
See, I might have just zoned out for some details, but that was like a lore drop for me. I didn't really think Dorm made it up. I thought it was like a pre-existing thing.
I don't think
Dorm
I actually...
like...
Oh, I don't know if I ever talked about that. Yeah. So, because the whole... So the war, like, essentially was going on for like, I think I was saying like 30 or 40 years before the character showed up. And so like you were all... The whole point was that you were at the tail end of the war. That explains why you're able to accomplish this in a few months. And you were... like dealing with Dorm and all that, but Dorm had like all this story, this history. Like Dorm was there like pretty much since the beginning because she was born here. She was born in this world. She was fighting creatures. She's the one who woke up Azathoth in the audio drama we did with the Sacred Flame. They went and they collected the instruments. They're the ones who woke Azathoth up because like Matthews was tricking them. And so essentially Dorm, when she came into power, she was afraid of the gods, and so she had gone mad from Azathoth, and she was like trying to think of like, I need to destroy the gods, I need to kill all of them so that we could be free. And she was like God-fearing, and so she started coming up with this idea of like there must be a creature out there, something out there that could eat all the gods, that could just kill them. So she came up with the Shining God and started like, you know, spouting and prophesizing about this. And as Doran was finally kind of like regaining her senses, you know, further into the war, she started to be like, oh, I was kind of making this up, but everybody's already worshiping it, and it was a really powerful force, so why not use religion? And I took my own jaded experiences with Christianity, and I rolled with it, creating the Church of the Shining God. And yeah, that's essentially how that came to being. And so when Dorum died, essentially you killed Dorum partway through that battle, and then she like exploded, and the Shining God was born into the world because it was no longer contained inside a vessel. And then you were fighting this newborn god, so that's why like you were able to kill it. But
and I guess the other like closely related thing is I thought for sure you were going to do like a bit of a red herring thing, like Dorum isn't actually our ultimate enemy, it's actually this. And I thought the actually this part was going to be either Azathoth, or I had a couple other options, and the other one that like stuck out the most was like somehow like Astoria would be like a turncoat somehow or something.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously neither of those came to pass either. Or there'd be some new unnamed entity that would come out of the shadows and be like, guess what? I've been doing this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Dorum's been the only one keeping you safe.
I originally had it that Dorum was going to die before the final fight when I first wrote the campaign. And then I changed it, I think around like the Arkham arc, I decided against it. But essentially, Dorum was supposed to like die bringing Azathoth into the world and like letting Azathoth in. So they would the party would show up and Dorum would already be dead, and they'd be like, what the fuck, like Dorum's gone. And then they would have to fight an aspect of Azathoth. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I liked it more that Azathoth was like, you can't kill this, you can't even touch this, the best you can do is just put it the fuck back to bed, because if you tried to fight it, it would just consume your being. Like it consumes planets. There's no way that, your sweet ass sword and a couple spells will be able to push it back.
And like, so this is going to be like a little bit of a reach here. But I really like that more. Because the only, like, if you were to let us like fight and kill Azathoth or some version of Azathoth, I think the only way to make that interesting is if you do it like Path of Exile does. And it's like, you've literally killed eldritch gods, sort of like the Shaper and Elder and whatnot from that game. But then they like kind of guilt you about it. Like, when will you stop pursuing stuff in the Atlas, you know? So it's kind of it's kind of like almost make it like you've become the monster. Like, that'd kind of be the only way I feel that would be interesting. Because otherwise it's like, oh yeah, you killed God. Congrats.
Yeah, essentially it kind of like, it's empty almost. It's like an empty victory. Like, we did it. We did what we wanted to do, but like, you know, how was that possible? How are we able to achieve that? And so like my big goal for that was to just really, really drive home that there are some things out there that you just can't kill. Doesn't matter how strong you get, it's just, you're not going to win. And that was the big one that I wanted to drive home, was that every time that Azathoth was shown, or like there was a glimmer of it, even when you met Haster was like the size of a mountain sitting on a throne. And it was like that kind of like understanding like that we can't stop them. Yeah. We're essentially playing their game, and we have to play it so that we survive on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like a sense of like actual deity to it that way.
Yeah. I think when D&D hits like that epic level, it has that issue of like, we can do anything. Like, where's the limit? And your character just kind of, it loses a little bit of sense of self, sense of being, because then it just becomes more statistics of like, what are you going to destroy next? I guess kind of like what you were saying, like when does it stop?
Yeah, I mean, like, it gets ridiculous at some extent, like with D&D mechanically, because when Draxir gets to level 20, he gets like this new like class feature that gives him basically a +1 for each attuned item. This is going into like D&D mechanics, I guess, but like, and you can attune up to 6 different things. So between that and Flash of Genius, I get a +11 to literally any roll ever. And then that's not even counting like your actual attributes or proficiency. So it just gets stupid. Like, how do you fail a roll? Like, it just get insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's why we had it end at like level 13 or 14.
I think we got to 15 actually.
Did you?
I think so.
I think that's a pretty good spot to like saving the world level 15. I don't even know if the randos are going to get that high. I think the randos might get like to level 13 or 14.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
But those are the questions we had, and I hope you're all excited for the next campaign. I am going to be recording a chat with Michaela, and we'll be uploading that hopefully within a week or two, explaining what the new campaign is going to be like, and because there's a lot of fun details. But we're also going to have like a Twitch and YouTube version where I'm doing a boatload of art, so please watch it. Please subscribe to our YouTube. It helps me, not only my confidence, but it just helps me get our YouTube out there. Smash that like and subscribe. Well, thank you for joining me, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for having the whole campaign and for the Q&A thing here. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was a blast to the past. I had a lot of fun, and thank you for sticking with this very long game, seeing it through to the end.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, everyone that listens to the Q&A.
We hope you enjoyed our tale, The Ballad of the Chosen Few, and the next campaign that will be coming out later this month, at the end of the month, it will be called Escaping Carcosa. So look forward to that. Alright, dear travelers, until next time, bid you all adieu.